Lowell M Richardson was born in 1843 according to war documents and 1844 according to census records. This means he could have lied about his age, making him 1 year older, old enough to fight in the war like his brother John Calvin. Lowell also had 3 other siblings, Susan, Harlan, and Rosella, and 2 parents, Calvin and Betsy. Lowell and his family lived in District 1, near one of the many schools in South Londonderry and Londonderry. The cemetery where his gravestone stands is on Middletown Road, where these 3 roads meet. Many families back then were very religious. His family could have gone to this congregational church. Merchants in the area sold things such as clocks and watches. Their shops were located on Main Street and North Street. There were 2 physicians in his area, Arnold J. and Bisbee A.B. They were also located on Main Street and North Street. Paintings and photographs of Vermont and New England during the Civil War can say a lot about what the Richardsons' lives may have been like. Many were merchants, farmers, and manufacturers. Londonderry and South Londonderry were split up into 13 districts. Each one usually had its own school. In South Londonderry, many things have changed since the Civil War. Back then, there was a lot going on as opposed to today. There was a huge inn that sat in the middle of town for about 100 years before it was burned down. Many Vermont soldiers would stop there on their way to Brattleboro, where they would start their journey south. Despite this, the buildings have not changed very much. Take this building for example. Although it is no longer a hardware shop, the building's architecture has not changed. Communication was very different back then. The mail system was very inconsistent, and letters from soldiers in the war or other community members would take days or weeks to get to the receiver, and then come all at once. Letters written by soldiers were very important to families and friends back home. Some sketches by the soldiers were put in the local newspaper, and poems would be published also. It was one of the only ways people got news about the war. Lowell M Richardson enlisted on December 7, 1861. He was mustered in on February 18, 1862. He was a private in the Company H, 8th Vermont Infantry. Lowell's brother, John Calvin, wrote a letter during his time in the war. He mentioned visiting his brother, Lowell, a sharpshooter, even though Lowell was a private in the 8th Infantry. John Calvin wanted more action in the war, so it's likely that Lowell felt the same way. The occupation of New Orleans was on April 25th through May 1st, 1862. The 8th Vermont Infantry arrived in New Orleans on May 1st. On this day, Major General Ben Franklin Butler's army began landing at New Orleans and occupying the city. New Orleans was considered an international city and the largest city in the Confederacy. The capture of the largest Confederate city was a major turning point in the Civil War. Lowell M. Richardson died on the 22nd of June, 1862, 4 months and 4 days into his service, in Raceland, Louisiana. On this map shows places where the 8th Vermont Infantry also fought. They fought in battles such as Cedar Creek and Bisland. War records are unsure of where he was buried. This means the grave in Londonderry could be a cenotaph, and he could be buried in Louisiana. The epitaph on his grave says, he enlisted December 7, 1861, in Company H 8 VT Volunteers. He went to New Orleans, where he served faithfully under Captain H. Dutton and General Butler. He was killed by guerrillas in ambush at Bayou des Allemands, Louisiana, June 22, 1862. He fell like a soldier and died at his post. Lowell died not in battle, but by members of a small independent group taking part in irregular fighting, typically against larger regular forces. I hope you enjoyed Lowell M Richardson's story by Olivia Bellingham.